Okay, I'm ready to roll. You're driving.
Okay, well, it's my turn to sing the intro music. Although I do like that little diddly that you just played.
But every single person who has this kind of mixer has this preloaded.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the horns. Oh!
What do you think, Hars?
I didn't know it was a whole thing. Seriously? 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 Cut. Nice. Still working on the mix.
You just cut
Still
that right
working
there.
on the mix. Well, hello and welcome to the second episode of Seriously. How you feeling, Dave?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling energized because we're doing this before 3 p.m. And I don't know why I started with an American accent today. I'm sorry.
Producer Harley is in the building. He said there were some things that we needed to work on last episode, and we've made the changes, and he's here to make sure that all goes according
What
to
changes
plan.
did we make?
The position of where we're sitting,
We moved our camera angles 45 degrees.
the table that we have our mic stands on.
Yeah. Don't know why I didn't use that in the first place.
We
but,
have our razzle dazzle coffees to make
know.
sure that we're all in good moods today.
I can't reach mine.
Yeah, you're going to have to come up with something better for that. Make sure you swallow it off the microphone because another episode will have to be about my misophonia, which is it's not a fear of sound, but it's an annoyance of sound.
You're like extremely hypersensitive.
Well, Dave, something that we discussed after watching our first episode back, and I will say, I already feel like you are.
I know exactly where this is going.
What?
I'm loosening up. Remember I said I need a little bit of this? It's happening.
Yeah.
I also have had coffee this morning, and we recorded that first episode closer to sunset.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
That's why I said we have to do it before 3 o'clock in the afternoon or it's not happening.
My energy levels are there.
Yeah, your foot is twitching uncontrollably.
Yeah, sorry, that's restless leg syndrome.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, how can we get you to loosen up a bit more? Just pump you full of caffeine?
Yeah, caffeine. I went to Sam's Club 2 weeks ago, and naturally I bought a 24-pack of Red Bull.
Which was a horrible decision, by the way.
I'm like extremely sensitive to any kind of
No,
stimulant.
if David drinks a coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning, I will hear about it at 8 o'clock at night when we're getting ready to go to bed about how you're not going to be able to go to sleep because you had a coffee at 6:15 a.m.
So I could do Red Bulls pre-show, but I think caffeine in the morning is more than enough.
Yeah. Okay, well, since people are still trying to get to know us, we have, in my opinion, the most riveting love story of all time. And this is really the low-hanging fruit, as the episodes continue to go on. We won't be rehashing out these things that I feel like we've talked about 18 million times. But a lot of people don't know the story about how we met. I mean, a girl from Ohio, a guy from South Africa, meeting when we were 18 and 21. It's pretty wild. Then reconnecting 7 years later, straight out of a Hallmark movie.
Where do you want me to begin?
How did you end up in America? At age 20, at the ripe age of 20.
Yeah, I mean, the whole journey started probably when I was about 18, 19, when the thought popped into my head to go play soccer there. And one thing led to another, and I had scholarship opportunity in West Virginia. Nothing crazy. I'm no like mega athlete. I'm no like...
I thought you were.
I'm no like child prodigy or anything like that. I ended up just taking the best scholarship like in terms of monetary benefit that I could, even though it wasn't a full ride, and that put me in West Virginia. How did you end up in West Virginia?
I lived in Ohio till I was 14. My dad got a job in West Virginia, so we moved with 6 weeks left of my freshman year of high school, which is just brutal. Like
You're
that.
about to call it a day.
Yeah, that is a brutal age to move. Especially, I lived in one place my entire life, and it was a very close-knit community. Everybody that went to school where I grew up in Perry started kindergarten there, graduated there, went to Ohio State. That's what everybody from my hometown pretty much did.
And you were on that track.
Yeah. So ended up in West Virginia when I was 14. And then we met on my 18th birthday.
Was your 18th birthday like actual birthday?
Yeah.
Like I knew you were 18 when I met you. But...
Yeah, it was a week before. I remember because, well, first, before we get to the Facebook message, because that was our first communication.
I should have pulled that up.
You met my sister first, and not, people always make the joke.
Yeah.
Did you ever hook up with my sister?
Yeah, no, absolutely
You
not.
said yeah.
No, I'm agreeing to the fact that like that is one of the first things that come to mind when we tell that story. But the truth is, even the friend that introduced me to your sister wasn't like dating her or hooking up with her.
Yeah.
It was just like a group of girls that we had connected with.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually another girl in the group that was like probably most interested in us soccer boys. And other girls would sort of tag along. And we were just hanging out watching... I think we might have been watching Super Bowl.
No, I think it was the Grammys.
Or something like that. And your sister said you would love my sister. You should. So
she used the word love.
I don't know if she said love. She's like, you would really like my sister. And she showed me your Facebook profile. Back then, like Facebook profile was basically like your like dating card. Like,
oh yeah, and you didn't have like an iPhone. You had a T9. Like
that's a good point. This is
pull up pictures.
The year is 2011.
Yeah,
and the iPhone 1 had recently come out. I think the year prior. So everyone in America obviously gets it first. American company. In South Africa, you had never even... You probably have only just seen pictures of iPhones. Like, that's it. You'd never seen somebody else with an iPhone. So when I saw people in America with iPhones, I was like, what is this marvel? And you had one, which was really exciting. But I had this little... I think at the time I went to Walmart and got whatever,
it was like a track phone.
Yeah, like a 30.
So cute.
Like the phone came in plastic, like that hard plastic stuff with the SIM card in it. And we all had our laptops for school. We really depended on our laptops. And I remember obviously using my laptop to message you on Facebook. You ended up messaging me first, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I did. So I remember my best friend in high school. Our birthdays were like 8 days apart. We were all spending the night at her house for her birthday. And we were all together all the time anyways. We were on the dance team together and what have you. So, of course, I also get a text from my sister saying, I met someone. I think he's cute. I think you might like him, whatever. And then very shortly after, you sent me a Facebook friend request. So, you're like the man of my dreams now, but in 2011, I was like drooling over baby Dave because I was a bit of an emo kid, and so were you. You had like a half mullet situation. You had your ears pierced with the black circles.
I had a total of 4 earrings.
Like mini gauges almost, right?
I had fake gauges. So I had like the single piercing with the big circles on the end.
Oh, soccer player. I was such a cleat chaser.
History of soccer players.
I literally only ever dated soccer players. I don't know what it is about it. But anyways, when we re-pulled up the messages, we always thought David messaged me first, but I messaged him first.
And the first messages are like, hey.
With like 18 wives.
And I was like, Morgan's sister, right? Brittany's sister, right?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's me.
And the funniest thing is your Facebook profile said you lived in Sarasota.
No, Orlando.
Orlando.
Yeah.
And I was like, so Orlando, right?
Yeah. You seriously asked me, so you live in Orlando? And I'm like, no. How would I live in Orlando if I was in high school and you met my older sister?
Right. I mean, I guess I just thought America was a lot smaller than it is.
No, and this is so classic Dave. This was such a Dave thing to say at age almost 21 because you were a big partier back in the day. You were like, oh, yeah, Orlando, we're going down for spring break.
Yeah, that's exactly how I sounded. It was more like, oh, yeah, Orlando, we're going down there for spring break. All the boys are going. It's going to be so like
we're taking this girl's car because it wasn't.
Oh yeah. So she's like hooked us up with her car. It's going to be so epic. And
that never happened.
She bailed on us. She took her car to her family. She just drove home. Turns out, like a big thing in America is all the Americans go to college somewhere not their hometown.
Yeah.
Then they drive back whenever they get a chance. So she ghosted us, took her car, and we ended up wasting whatever we had booked in Orlando for spring
Yeah,
break.
didn't
Why
go
the
to
heck were we going to
Orlando.
Orlando for spring break?
You guys were just rowdy boys, pent up, wanted to let some steam off.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that you watched all of the movies about what college was supposed to be like in America,
Yeah,
and
very
you
true.
weren't getting that experience in Beckley, West Virginia, so you thought you were going to get it in Orlando, Florida.
I mean, I just thought college was college. I
Yeah.
thought everything was going to be an Ohio State experience.
Yeah.
And little did I know that that was not the case. And I mean, the crazy thing is that it's still like it was so small, but as small as I could imagine it, it was even smaller.
Yeah, it was.
Like
Looking back.
there was the population of Beckley is something like less than 70,000 people.
For you, I mean, I wasn't into this scene because I was a goody two shoes and I was only 18, but there was only one nightclub.
Yeah, and it was a pretty sketchy place. We didn't go there often.
And like the 3 times you did, I'm pretty sure I dropped you guys off and picked you guys back up.
Yeah.
So then we go on our first date. Should we talk about our first date?
Yeah.
That was not at all a first date. I mean, I thought it was. I showed up expecting it to be, but it was not.
Well, so the first time we met, the dormitory that we lived in was like 4 or 5 stories. We were on the ground floor. And instead of using the front door like normal humans, we would use the window.
Every single time I went to David's dorm, he was jumping out of the window. Not one time did you use the door.
It was so convenient to just step out the window because the windows were like at like waist height.
Yeah,
You'd
so
step out the
convenient.
window and then you're at the car park. And I remember you walking up to the window. I think you were wearing like a black hoodie
I was.
and jeans.
I was wearing one of those Victoria's Secret pink zip up hoodies.
It was
but
just
it was
like-
black. And I had holy jeans on. I remember clear as day.
I just remember you looked very, very cute and like just like the perfect level of like not extra. That's really attractive to me. And I'm getting nervous talking about it. And so the dorms were made up of 4. You had 4 guys in one room, and we were obviously all texting each other and stuff. And you were like, "Let's go to IHOP."
I would never in a million years recommend to go to IHOP. So that was a you thing.
It was late, wasn't it? Like 9 p.m. or something.
Yeah, it was late.
So nothing else would really have been open unless you wanted to go to like fast food.
That's true.
Like McDonald's or something. So I must have said IHOP just because we've probably been there and I was familiar with the place. Like I'd been living in America for like 6 months at that point.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what was what. And so I told one person, I think I told Scott, I was like, "Hey, just met this girl, Morgan, Brittany's sister. We're going to go to IHOP if you want to come with." And next thing you know, he's like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." So then he tells somebody else and they tell somebody else. Next thing you know, we're just all
The whole
jumping.
soccer team is jumping
whole
out of
soccer
the
team
first
is
floor
jumping
window,
out of the window one
and
at a time.
into my car. I'm thinking I'm going on a first date, and I have the Mountain State University soccer team in my Chevy
yeah.
Cobalt that has crank
Yeah.
roll down windows, and we're driving to IHOP.
Oh, man.
I was like, okay, well,
That was...
this is going to be something.
And I mean, I think we just did the classic IHOP, like
Yeah, we
waffles
did.
and ice cream. And what did we do after that as like a second date? Like, we went to the movies.
We went to the movies once with my sister and her now husband. We...
What? Do you remember me crying at the end of African Cats?
I remember...
What a movie. If you have not seen African Cats, oh, look at this guy. If you have not seen African Cats, go and watch it. The year is 2011. I am a South African boy away from my family, so alone, feeling so alone. And I find this girl, this wonderful, beautiful girl, and she's like making me feel all the things. And we go and watch African Cats, which is like a real life documentary, but it's storytelling. So like they film actual natural real animals, but they like follow their lives and their babies and their children. And by the end of the movie, I'm just crying, missing home. And that was one of our second or third dates.
Yeah, and he's telling the truth because He also cried at the end of the Lion King remake whenever the hyenas were howling because it reminded him of home.
If you go to the Kruger National Park and you lay in bed, a lot of the time you can hear hyenas, and like nowhere near our house, obviously where I grew up, but we went to the Kruger a lot, and I remember hearing the hyenas in the Lion King remake, and it making me pretty sad. I mean, to be fair, I cried at the end of Free Willy when I was a kid. So
He's just a big soft dude.
I'm a crier. I'm cool with that.
I was gonna say I don't remember a lot of our dates, but I do remember one of the dates. And like, bless your heart, this is just. We both didn't have any money. I mean, I was 18, you were 20.
It was real love because you did not come after me for my money.
But we decided to go to 2 for $20 Applebee's because
boy,
that's what we could afford.
I think I got the I would call it the prawn pasta.
You got the shrimp pasta. And I got boneless barbecue wings.
And I remember back then that felt like luxury. And since I've like immigrated here permanently, I don't think I've ever been to Applebee's.
Yeah, I don't know.
But back then it was like.
It was the Applebee's. Creme de la creme.
We went from IHOP to Applebee's and was like, Mama, I made it.
And then we fell in love. We were inseparable. We really were. We never defined the relationship though, because in the back of our minds, we met in February and you had already made the decision to go back to South Africa in late May, right?
Yeah, pretty much the end of May. With how obviously the school system works here, the year ends in the middle of the year. And that's not like that in South Africa. We work on the calendar year. So everyone was deciding the long story is that the university was kind of in a shambles. And a lot of the soccer players, we had been told by the like coaching staff, like it's probably for your athletic careers is to find another school.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys were going to trials at other universities. And for some reason, I had a lot of like self-confidence issues when it came to like my athletic ability. I didn't have any belief in myself. So I didn't actually go on any of the trials because I didn't think I was good enough. Like I know that to a fact to this day, but back then I wouldn't admit it to myself. Anyway, so I was like, I'm just going to go back to South Africa. And in those 6 months before like the school year ends in South Africa, I'm going to try get another job. So just before we met, I had already told my parents, I'm coming back home. It was too difficult to live as a student and depend on my parents in America because there were no on-campus jobs. The school was so small that there just wasn't any vacancies or places that you could earn money legally. And on a student visa, you can't work.
But that was in the back of our minds the whole time. Like, I knew that I liked you.
Whoa, easy, L-O-V-E.
I mean, I was 18, so I, like, in the moment, I didn't know really what love was,
right?
You know?
And I was 20 and like
a wild child.
I think we were definitely like living in the moment, and just like enjoying it. I was really homesick, and your family made me feel like I had a home, and it was like devastating leaving. It really was. But at the same time, we both knew that we had our lives to live still. Yeah. Because you were going to Marshall. Mm-hmm. And that was like a big thing for you. You were super excited about that.
But you leaving, honestly, I mean, not to be rude, but I think it was a lot harder on me than it was on you.
Yeah.
Because you 100%. At least had like, when you left, like I laid in my bed and cried for like days.
Yeah.
And you at least had I still had 3 months before I was going to school. Right. So I had 3 months to be 18, be heartbroken, you know, whatever. You were going home to this big, you know, family reunion, and you got to see all of your friends, and you were a wild animal back in the day, to put it lightly. So I wasn't, you know, I said, I was goody two shoes. So I would sit there knowing exactly what was going on with you. Not to say that and we've talked about it, like looking back on it now, you probably were just coping with heartache in a different way.
Oh yeah, 100%. It also had like a delayed, like emotional reaction to it. I was excited to go home and excited to get back to my family and excited to get back to my friends. And then I started missing you, and I would feel like it would all sort of come bubbling back.
Oh man, on Thanksgiving we went back and looked at some of the Facebook messages.
Yeah,
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I was embarrassed. But also I didn't know, I mean, I was 18. I didn't know how to handle that type of like, it was a big emotion in me, right? And I had never experienced something like that before. Knowing that I wasn't going to see you again for at least, I mean, I was always optimistic. I was always like, I'm going to go visit him, whatever. I was like, oh, I wasn't a world traveler, but I wanted to be. You know, I was like an independent person and I wasn't afraid, I guess, is what I was looking for.
Yeah, I remember saying that a lot, like, oh, you can come to South Africa,
Yeah.
it'll be so awesome.
And
then,
we
like,
thought it would
reality
happen.
kicked
It
in
just
and we're
never
like-
did. Yeah.
There was a point where we both moved on.
Yeah.
We didn't see each other for 7 years. So yeah, we moved on.
Yeah.
And like, we just lived our lives for a bit.
Because I've had people ask me, like, you didn't talk at all in 7 years. We definitely were like hot and cold with each other
Yeah.
and would keep each other like at an arm's distance, but always, I think, still had like good thoughts towards each other, obviously. And like, I remember when I was in college and I had other relationships, like we wouldn't talk and vice versa.
Yeah.
And then it would be just like the classic, you get a text on your birthday or a Merry Christmas. You know, you look for those opportunities to text the person that you want to talk to. And I feel like we kind of did that for a couple of years. And I remember I had already come back from college and it was, again, my birthday weekend. I don't know what that was about, but my birthday weekend, and I got a text from you saying, you know, happy birthday. We haven't talked in a while. It had been years at this point. It had been years. And I was like, oh. And like, that's when something, I don't know. I don't know if I was just suppressing it all these years or if I just put it out of my mind because I knew physically we couldn't be together, living on two different, you know, sides of the world. But I just remember feeling weirdly more excited about that text than when we had talked in the past.
I was in a really weird like place in my life. I was really like, as a young man, 20, I must have been like what, 24, 25?
Yeah, something like that.
Because we met, you were 18, I was 20. I left America when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we probably reconnected around 2015, 2016, around then. And I was just in this place where like I didn't know what I wanted out of life. I was in debt. I was now I know that I was like mentally I was pretty depressed, and I didn't know that back then. I didn't really understand any of that. And I decided to move to England because I was born there. I moved to South Africa when I was only 18 months old, so I have a British and South African passport. I saw a lot of my South African friends doing everything they could to get an ancestral visa to go to England so that they could like get better jobs. Like we all love South Africa, and South Africa is my home and I absolutely love that country. But if you have an opportunity to like make something of your career, a lot of people take it. And I had that opportunity with my passport. So I just decided to almost have like a fresh start. And I remember being excited to tell you that I was going to England because I knew deep down that there would be an opportunity for me to travel from the UK to the US to maybe see you one day. Because I mean, South Africa to the US is you're in the air for almost 15 hours. It's 24 hours door to door.
Yeah,
and from the UK, I mean, I've done New York to Heathrow in 6 hours before.
Yeah,
so it's just a lot more like reasonable. And there's just a much bigger economy and better opportunity for me to make money and travel. So I think that's maybe part of the reason, is that there was like a little hope that I would see you again.
Aw,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Where do you want me to go next?
I guess we can talk about you coming back in what was I can
It was
never
2017. So I moved to London in 2016. And I like put my head down. I was all work, and I was job hunting. I was doing anything that I could to find work. I ended up working in a pub for 6 months. We told the chickenpox story in the first episode. If you haven't heard that, go watch it. I got chickenpox when I was at 27, got fired from a job because they thought I was flunking
lying
on
about
work.
chickenpox.
Yeah. And then I got another job. My first sort of product design job, which is kind of the world I'm in now, I started earning enough money where I could think about traveling. I got out of debt. I was very proud of that at that age. And I remember saying to you, why don't I come over for Christmas in 2017? And I did it. I remember, and because we knew we were going to see each other, the text got a little bit more like risque. Not risque in that regard, but like it was just this idea of like, ooh, we're going to see each other again. And there was one night that you called me, and let's just say you were excited to see me. And
yeah, but I was in denial too because I was still living at home at the time.
Yep.
And so I had to ask my parents if my ex-boyfriend from 7 years ago could come stay in our family home over the holidays, which could be an interesting conversation. But like you said, my parents, when we were all in West Virginia, my parents loved you and took you in. I mean, my mom did the kids' laundry for Pete's sake. But anyways, I remember they all just like looked at me like, David is coming back to Ohio to spend Christmas with the family. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. We're just friends. Like, it's been 7 years. I'm 25 now, just thinking I had grown so much, which like I had, but at the same time, in denial. I mean, there was definitely still and always will be like an attraction, not just physically, but emotionally. We're just like two little peas in a pod, I'd say.
Yeah.
So I was excited about that, but I thought, I'm a different person now. I'm not going to be in love with the same person I was in love with when I was 18 years old. I mean, I remember you getting to the airport clear as day. I'm sure you do too, but I'll tell my version of the story and then you can tell yours. I remember wanting to look cute, wanting to put my best foot forward and whatever. I had so many butterflies. I had so many nervous poops. It was like horrific. And then I get to the airport. He's taking a drink of the Razzle Dazzle while I said that. But anyways, I remember seeing you come down on the escalator. Like from the top of the escalator, I clocked you as soon as you got on it. And I remember I remember just seeing you come down. And when I first saw you, I was like, oh no. Like that was my first reaction. I was like,
what was that feeling? What feeling did you have?
Like my heart dropped into my butthole, it felt like.
Yeah, that's the one.
And there's no other way to put it because it's not just like my heart dropped. Like my heart dropped all the way down. And I just remember thinking like, oh no, like what are we going to do? It was instant. And I remember, us making eye contact and like we just hugged immediately. And it wasn't like a normal hug. It was like a different type of hug.
I think you've explained it pretty well because I felt the same way. And I think we both knew that as well. Yeah. I remember your smell. I remember like this, what you, like, I was like, whoa, it's crazy how your senses can like connect you with a time.
Yeah.
Because the moment I could smell you and see you, it was like, I went back to where we were.
Yeah.
And like I had moved on from that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't in my like psyche anymore. But then when it came back, it was there and it was like, whoa. So I remember thinking the same thing, like, this is bad, good. Like this is good, but bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just wanted to enjoy the time together. But we were also like wondering what the heck would happen.
But also I knew it was over. I knew it was over because I remember like driving back to my house because there was like a 45-minute drive to my house. I remember you put your hand on my leg while I was driving, like just a knee tap, like, hey, I'm here. I
did that on the drive back from the airport.
Oh, yeah. Handsy Dave.
Go on, Dave. Go on, Dave.
Handsy Dave never missed an opportunity, to have
7
some physical touch.
What up, girl?
But then I remember we got home and it was pretty late. And you were staying in the guest bedroom. And like I was like, okay, well, I guess good night. And you're like, no, come in here.
Day one?
Yes. You don't remember this? I remember we were watching Cardi B on the late. It was like one of the late night shows, and Cardi B was on it, and we were
Cardi
like, "What?"
B?
Yeah, we were like, "What is going on here?" It was one of her viral moments. I should look it up and see which one it was. I remember
I remember watching Nightline.
Well, I think they were after each other. That's like the late night special. But I remember like we weren't like under the covers or anything, but you were laying in the bed and you were like, "Come on, come see me," and I just cuddled up. I just cuddled up.
Back in the day, watching The Lion King and The Jungle Book in
it was
Hogan Hall
wild.
dorms.
It was like no time had passed at all.
Like
there was
nothing had changed.
there was not any awkwardness. It's just like, oh,
Yeah, it was wild.
we didn't kiss though.
Yeah, we didn't. We didn't.
Not night one.
Yeah.
Day two.
Look, guys, here's the order of operations. Little knee touch, little snuggle action, and then I can kiss you on day 2.
It was day 2.
2.5.
Yeah. He hadn't been at my house for less than 24 hours before laying one on me. And I wouldn't, okay. I was about to say I wasn't thrilled about the kiss, but you know why. It wasn't the kiss itself. Where were we when you kissed me?
Oh, it was on the Cleveland sign.
In the
What
middle of a
an
public
idiot.
place.
I remember the build up to it because I knew I was going to try and kiss you that day. And I remember us walking up to the Cleveland sign. It's like over the harbor, like you can see the city behind you. And I remember having like sweaty palms holding your hand on the way to the sign, thinking, "Oh, this is a good place to kiss it for the first time." I'm such a romantic.
First time. Yeah,
I'm such a romantic. I've got to like do a scene. It's got to be a thing. I got to like be able to tell a story. I mean, I
Not
say
only
that,
that,
but I proposed to you like on the stage at music practice.
Yeah. Anyways, you had your camera set up, and that's what was happening.
That's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah. You were taking pictures. You had like the self timer or something, and we were on the Cleveland sign. And obviously, looking back, you wanted a picture of you kissing me on the Cleveland sign.
0 to 100, Dave.
0 to 100, and it wasn't a peck. He wasn't trying to peck me. He was trying to get in there.
Morgan hates PDA. Like, she hates it.
Yeah.
So I was like, and she was like, and I was like,
I mean, I was happy about it, but there were other people like children waiting to take their picture on the Cleveland sign.
It was like winter. No one was there.
People were walking around outside.
And like, that kind of stuff, I don't care about.
Yeah.
Like,
I do. Not so much anymore. Now that we're married, I feel like I don't care. I hug you in public all the time.
Hug me in public. Oh, whoa, easy. Take it easy. Don't go too far.
Okay.
Kids, close your eyes.
Okay, but then we had 2 weeks. You were in Ohio for 2 weeks.
I was in Ohio for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then we had another conundrum of you going back to England, and we did not know what was going to happen.
Yeah, and I'd only been in England for about a year. Probably about a year and a half, actually. I had a lot of life still in me in London, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I had just found my feet. I'd found a job. It took a long time to get to that point, and I didn't want to give any of that up yet. So there was a good 45-minute drive back to the airport. Not a word.
Not one.
Was spoken.
Yeah.
That entire journey.
Well, we need to talk about the family meeting before going to the airport.
Yeah.
My parents know, too. I never liked anybody. I mean, I wasn't a man hater, but I just never liked anybody enough to like bring them home or whatever. I think I had one other boyfriend that I ever brought home. They just knew. And like, I would just melt like putty in your hand, and I would be more like affectionate, not to Dave's standards, but I wouldn't be afraid to like cuddle with you on the couch in front of my parents or hold your hand or whatever. And so we're getting ready to leave that day. And remember, we're staying under my parents' roof, so they've pretty much seen everything. And we're having breakfast, and my mom's crying because she loves David and doesn't want David to leave. And my parents are asking, like, what's going on with the two of you? And David and I, we had some conversations prior about not doing a long distance relationship. Mostly because I had a terrible experience in a previous long distance relationship, and it was only a couple of hours. And I'm like, oh gosh, if this is how bad this relationship was, I can only imagine that a cross-continental relationship while we're still in our early 20s is going to be, even worse. So I was completely closed off to the idea. And so literally it's like a 4-person table. It's me, David, my mom, and my dad. And my mom's crying, like I said, and my dad's the one who convinced me that we should give it a try.
Yeah, I think I would say the same.
Because he was like, Morgan, we've never seen you like this. And he said, the only time we've ever seen you like this was 7 years ago with David in Beckley. And he said, it's clear that, why am I like, ew? You got a little twinkle in your eye?
You do.
I know, I was trying to project.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, he was like, you've never been like this. It's very obvious that your guys' paths have brought you together, not once, but twice for a reason. This type of stuff does not happen every day. And he said something to us, I think, that we've carried throughout the rest of our relationship. And that's, if you're waiting for the perfect time, you'll always be waiting.
Right.
And I think that was something that I had like really ingrained in me, is just like, it's not the right time. I'm 25. I still live in my parents. I don't have my career where I want it. Same with you. You just said, you just moved to London at the time. And so I was like, oh crap, if my parents are like sitting here pretty much saying, Morgan, that's the love of your life, don't let him get away, like you should probably think about that. And so, like I said, after that conversation was the 45-minute drive of silence.
Dead silence.
And I feel like
bit of knee touching.
You could feel the wheels turning in both of our heads.
Yeah.
But we just didn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
And that led us to the airport.
Yeah, and then we were in the security line at the airport, and we made a decision right then and there. We had one of those, those moments at the airport when you realize this is the moment that you have to part ways.
Yeah.
And we hugged, and we hugged, and we hugged.
And we cried,
and we did not let go. And we had experienced this 7 years ago when I left America the first time. And we decided in that moment, we were like, let's just try this.
Yeah, I remember you saying, so what do you want to do? And I was hesitant, obviously for all the reasons that I just explained. And then I just said, if we don't try, we'll never know.
Yeah.
And I didn't elaborate, but I mean, if we tried and it failed, then we tried and it failed.
Yeah.
But if we didn't at least try, we wouldn't know what the outcome would have been.
And your dad's advice was like ringing in my ears of the perfect timing.
Yeah.
And I think I've applied that into a lot of things with our relationship. Like when we got engaged and when we decided to get married, like we were also waiting for the perfect time then.
Yeah.
And it got to a point of like, that's not going to come.
Yeah.
Especially with the immigration laws. I need it some way.
Yeah.
And it was advice that I've heeded, and it's worked out really, really well. And I ended up living in the UK for another 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And the pandemic definitely slowed our plans down. We probably would have, I don't know if we would have got married sooner, but the motions of things happening would have happened sooner. And I probably would have got my visa sooner. Because COVID caused a long immigration backlog, and the offices closed down for a month. So imagine a month of no offices dealing with stuff. There's just more stuff incoming, and it was probably longer than a month even. But anyway, so that slowed things down a lot. But it was a very fun 4 or 5 years. I say that in the sense of it wasn't fun being apart, but we made the most of it.
Oh, for sure.
You came to Europe. And the beautiful thing about London is that it's so well connected within Europe, and the whole of Europe is still smaller than the whole of the United States.
Yeah.
And so we went to Greece, we went to Spain, we went to Paris, and it was just a fun time, you know, and you got to see all those places that you had been desperately wanting to see.
It's just so interesting because my whole entire life I was one of those people who said, I want to travel the world, but I never knew how I would. And I want to do all of these things and live a really big life, but I never, you know, I wasn't going to do these things by myself. And had I not made the decision to be in the relationship with you and take the risk, and like you said, I wouldn't have traveled the world. Right. So it's also just a testament to like God's plan for your life.
Right.
He put all these desires in my heart to see the world and to travel and to be adventurous. And even though at the time I didn't see how, you know, because those things are expensive as well. And I couldn't go backpacking around the world by myself. You know, I can't even, I've lived in the same place my whole life. I still don't know what exits to get off of, you know, without the GPS telling me. But to just look back and see, like, I know it's so corny, but like, the good Lord led us together on multiple times and like has always just come through. Not to preach, but
it would be remiss not to mention that, you know? And I think it's something that we've both realized, especially maybe we'll get into another episode, but the timing in my life, again, mid-20s, I was really struggling. And every time that you came into my life, good things happen. And I personally believe, and I know we both believe, that that's a God thing. Things, as difficult it was to be in a long distance relationship, there were so many good things coming out of it, and my life was changing for the better, and it has been better since you've been in it, and that's ultimately the end of it. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, I remember a very, very funny story. When I got back from that trip, I was living with Greg at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Greg's a very good friend of mine.
Greg was a groomsman in the wedding.
At our wedding. I remember walking in and he's like, "You go to America? I didn't expect you to come back with a bloody girlfriend." So, because I think he had seen the pictures of like us hanging out on Facebook and whatnot. He's like, "So what? You go to America? He's come back with his girlfriend." And he's gonna.
You were like, "Yeah."
If he ever hears that, he's gonna be like, "That is not how I speak." But
I mean, getting through the pandemic too was so wild.
That was really, really wild, and yeah, the UK was very strict on travel, and I guess we could tell the one story of when you came to visit, because it got to the point where the US borders were completely closed for non-Americans.
Yeah, we did 8 months of separation twice. So I was literally supposed to go see David in March of 2020. And I think it was like 6 days before I was supposed to fly is when the travel ban came down in March. And I was just like gutted. Then we went 8 months. And then finally I was able to go to the UK, obviously with a laundry list of things that I had to do to be able to do that. But I did. But while I was there, it was kind of a wild.
Yeah. So at that time we were on, it was pretty much lockdown, and you could connect with your bubbles of people or whatever. But if you arrived from an outside country, you couldn't leave your house for 10 days.
Mm-hmm. And that's the entirety of my stay.
Exactly. Unless you submitted a negative COVID test on day 5.
Mm-hmm.
So in those first 5 days, the government had outsourced people to come to your house and check if you were there.
And call.
Yeah. And we didn't believe they would ever come. We were like, it's just not happening. So I lived in South London in Putney, close to my beloved Fulham Football Club. And there's the River Thames right there. So every morning we wanted to get up, go have coffee by the river, have a walk around. And we got a missed call one day from a number that I didn't recognize. And I thought, I wonder if this is the government people. And so we just didn't answer. And so then we got back to the house, and then somebody came to the house. And I'm assuming they come once you don't answer.
Yeah.
Because they think you're avoiding them or something. They knocked on the door, and they had like a high-vis vest on with like some government credentials. And you could tell that they were just hired and outsourced. And they were like, "Is Morgan right here?
Yeah.
Can I see her?
And her passport.
Can I see her passport?"
Yeah. all these things.
Yeah, it was wild.
I was scared.
And that happened twice.
Twice. And the first time I was like, okay, fine.
Now that they've checked you, they're not coming back.
The second time, I was pissed.
Yeah.
I remember huffing and puffing. I was like, I'm doing everything right. I remember we would yell out the window like, Boris, let us out. We're stuck here. You know, like
Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister of England.
Losing our minds. And all I wanted was a freaking macaroon from around the street corner or whatever, but I couldn't walk there and get it. And I remember just being like, are you guys ever going to leave me the heck alone? Not to mention, to get a COVID test on day 5 was like $100.
Oh, it was more than that. They were absolutely price gouging everybody.
The results of the test didn't even come back until 48 hours later.
Right.
So it was
a wild, wild time. So that was one of the obstacles. I mean, at that point, it wasn't really early on.
That was like halfway through.
Yeah, this is like... So then when things started opening up and we started traveling a bit more, at that point, I had a remote job, which was a huge goal of mine. 1, for our relationship, but 2, just for the lifestyle that I was seeking. And that allowed me to spend more time in America. And I think this would be a good segue into a future episode, which would be my experiences coming to America for long periods of time as a visitor. The border security, what do you call that? National...
Border Patrol?
No, man. Homeland Security. So that's a South Africanism right there, is man saying, shame, man. No, man. The Homeland Security do not take lightly to people who are not citizens, not visa holders, spending long periods of time in this country, because you do not want to be taking a local person's job or something.
Yeah.
So I've got multiple stories.
Oh, yeah. We'll dedicate
the US.
We'll dedicate an episode to that for sure.
Probably where we can put a pin in it, because we're at 50 odd minutes, 55.
50?
55. We're almost at an hour.
Wow.
So thank you for bearing with us this week.
Wait, can we have to do the Seriously Award of the Week?
No,
just quickly.
I'm not wrapping up.
Oh, okay.
I'm just doing a little monologue on thanking people for getting through this far.
The lesson to be learned from our story is where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Because I got a lot of people asking me back when COVID was going on, and sometimes even like to this day, they're like, how did you make it through the pandemic? Like, was there ever a time that you thought you guys weren't going to make it? And honestly, no. I always knew that we were going to make it because I didn't want to live my life without you.
There was never doubt about us. There was just like logistical doubts.
Yeah. Hoops we had to jump through.
Yeah. And we got through it. So
and now we have our own little family with Harley Danielson and Dave.
Harley Daniels.
But we do have to do the Seriously Award of the Week, and I'm wondering if ours is going to be the same. Do you have one, or is it just me again? You probably don't.
I'm not going to lie to you. I have been terrible.
Okay, well, I'll say...
Let me say yours, and I'll see if mine triggers any bells.
No, yours will be mine, because we've already talked about it. The Seriously Award of the Week has to be Sharkgate.
Oh, I thought you said Sharkgate for a second.
No, Sharkgate.
100%.
With this producer right here, Harley Danielson.
Yeah. Do I have any like music for him about this? Sharkgate.
That kind of... That's like an audible...
This is the sound that was coming out of his butt.
Okay, explain Sharkgate.
So... As we just mentioned, actually, shared custody dog spends most of the time at Morgan's parents. He's technically their dog, and he spends a couple days a week here. And the other day, you opened my office slowly with this look on your face, mouth wide open, and you were like, what did you actually say?
I think I said Harley sharted.
Yeah. This son of ours had poop stuck to the back of his butt.
No. It wasn't like it. Okay, because it happened twice, and we were so confused because I had just let him out. David was still working. He's twitching up a storm over here. He's dreaming. David was still working. I had just let him out, and he was coming back up the stairs, and I see on him a fresh one on his backside.
And we're not talking dingleberries or accidental runs that got on his fur.
And
we're talking about like a poop that exited his body and didn't touch the ground.
Literally. And it wasn't even smushed into his fur. Like it hadn't been there a while. It was a shark. He farted and stuff came out. And I was like, okay, well, this is unfortunate. So I cleaned it up the first time. Yes, I wiped my dog's butt. I did it with a happy heart. I did it with gratitude for having such a beautiful little animal that I care so much about that I will just wipe it and be done with it.
Yep.
Until it happened for a second time. And I'm like, when has it ever happened where Harley is just farting and literal poop is coming out? I did not know that happened to animals. And you know what? This is how I know David and I were not ready to be parents at this particular moment in time. But this is how I know that David would be a good father, because what did he do? He was so caring towards Harley, attentive, put him in the bathtub, was just scrub-a-dub-dub, little Harley in the tub. He was getting in there.
It's hope our landlord doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, really. I mean, I cleaned everything thoroughly afterwards. But you were like so worried about him and his belly ache and what was going on.
But the best part was when I put him in the bath, obviously with warm water, he was terrified. And as soon as his feet touched the warm water, he was like, hey, you know what? This is so bad. So he's just an innocent little pup. He poops a lot. And I don't know what was going on that day, but we got involved.
Yeah, this is just our, precursor to having a baby one day and having to wipe its butt. And I promise that we're not going to talk about poop on every single episode of Seriously.
Are the chances of that?
But I mean, it's the show title for a reason, All right, hit the outro music, Dave. Red square. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up.
Anybody who uses the same Rodecaster mixers is just cringing right now.
It's seriously.
Harley.
It's seriously.
Harley.
Do the shimmy shake.
Harley.
Do the shimmy shake.
Harley.
Don't turn it down. I'm vibing.
Harley.
You know what we didn't say last time that we need to say this time? While the vibe is still high, keep the music on, Dave.
Yep.
Leave a review.
Yeah, please. This is a new show. We need algorithms to work in our favor. Send us some feedback. Send us some comments. What's boring? What's interesting? What do you want to hear about our lives? What do we want to hear about your lives?
And that's the end of that.
Boom.
How many crickets are there?